People travel miles and dig deep into their pockets when they're after a nice bit of steak. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about a few different cuts of beef, better known as a steak. So next time when you're ordering yours, you know what to expect, and hopefully this will help you make a better decision. So first up, I've got a lovely bit of a steak here, which is a bit of Bacvette or anglais. And this costs £20 a kilo, which is half the price of some of the more conventional cuts of steak. Now, arguably Bacvette is not even considered a steak, but what I can tell you is that it offers loads and loads of flavor, and by far it's one of the cheapest cuts of meat that you could get your hands on to make a really nice steak. Now, if you want to get a good eating experience with Bacvette, what you want to do is just cook it to a medium level of doneness, cut it against the grain, and then serve it with a bit of mustard or shallots like the French do, or perhaps with a good sauce like a good chimichurri, and you won't go wrong. So give this a try. I'm sure you are gonna love this cut of beef. And also, before I move on to the next one, Bacvette also makes for a really good braising beef, and it braises really well. So if you're after a bit of braising beef, Bacvette is the go-to beef. And next I have a bit of rump steak here, which is £29 a kilo, but I find it quite inconsistent. Now, with rump, you don't really get it in restaurants in London, but it's widely available in pubs outside London. In London, you tend to get the ribeye, the fillet, or the sirloin. Now, with the rump, as I say, it's quite inconsistent. You may get a cut from your butchers, which is nice enough today, but then the next time you get it, it may not be as good. I tend to stay away from it. It's not really for me, but on the whole, it's not a bad cut of steak. Next, I've got another cut of beef here, which is the ribeye, and this is widely available and a very popular choice when it comes to steak, which costs £45 a kilo. Now, with ribeye, you can always taste the richness and the quality in this meat. As I say, widely available. You get it in restaurants, in hotels, steakhouses, and of course in gastropubs as well. Now, with the ribeye, it's very tender and it's very flavoursome, though it's not as tender as the fillet, nor as flavoursome as the Bacvette. But it has a good fat content within it, lots of marbling, which means lots and lots of flavour. Overall, a fine balance between tenderness and flavour, and I highly recommend ribeye. And next, I've got a nice bit of sirloin steak here, which is what we call this cut of beef here in Britain. This is called the strip steak over in the States, and this costs £40 a kilo. Now, with sirloin, if it comes from the top end of the loin, you cannot complain about it. However, the more it goes towards the chuck end, then you tend to get more sinews going through the meat. Now, in fact, with this cut of steak, I have just a tiny bit of sinew just here, but overall, this delivers, pretty much ticks all the boxes. You get the right balance between tenderness and flavor with this cut of beef, and again, you cannot really knock it. Then we've got the fillet steak, or the tenderloin as our friends across the pond call it. Now, the fillet steak costs £65 a kilo, which is the most expensive of the lot. Now, it's got a really nice round shape to it. It's really soft, really tender. It always delivers, no fuss about it at all. And you get a really nice eating experience with it. Would I prefer it to any of the cuts over here? No, I wouldn't. Would I prefer the ribeye or the sirloin over the fillet steak? Yes, I would, every time. Overall, not a very popular choice when it comes to steak amongst the punters, and I think that's purely because of the price. Now, again, this is a really nice soft cut of meat. There is no fuss about it at all. You know, nice restaurants would always offer it on their menus, but again, you know, not very popular. It's not really for me either. I tend to stay away from it, but again, I can't knock it, and this always delivers. And finally, I've got a bit of feather blade steak here, or the flat iron steak over in the States, and this costs £24 a kilo, and it carries a huge amount of flavor. Now, I would prefer this over all the other cuts of beef that I have here, and I would go for this every single time. With feather blade, as I say, it always delivers. It has a huge amount of flavor and it's really tender, and I think it's an absolute gem. Though with this, you get a really large sinew running right the way down through the middle of this cut of beef, but with a bit of work by your butcher, you can have that sinew removed, and then you'll be left with two large, nice flat muscles, and you get a really good experience with this as well. Now with the feather blade, I have done a whole video on that, which I'm going to leave a link up here, or perhaps I'll pin it down in the comment box below as well. Now if you wanted to go and watch all about this beef, if you haven't done so in the past, then you'll get a lot of information on that video. I've also done another video on the Bacvette steak where I've made a sandwich, which again I'm going to leave a link down in the comment box below. So if you wanted to know how to cook that, make a beautiful sandwich with the Bacvette, then by all means go and watch that as well. And on that note, I really hope that you found this video informative, and if you got a tiny bit of value from it, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and share it with your friends and family. And perhaps if you're new here, I would again really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel, as this would cost you nothing, but it would massively help me in growing the channel. And I guess that's been it for this one. I'll be seeing you in the next one very soon. Until then, please look after yourselves, and remember, the secret ingredient is love.